Hello, I'm Pat Croce, and this is the American Cancer Society's HEALed Community Gathering. HEALed, it's a great acronym for health and energy through active living every day. No days off. That's right. Be active. In the house, around the house, no just sitting on the couch, suffering or worrying about yourself. Now, what we do here is encourage, enlighten, inspire, entertain, and ask all of you to attempt to live a healthier life, body, mind, and spirit, in the now, in the present moment. And we bring on guests every week, courtesy of our sponsors, 6ABC, our media sponsor, and all of our leadership partners, which are about 30 of them, that helped me raise almost $2 million. And then we also have all of you who've come through acsheal.com and made a contribution, anywhere from $5 to $5,000. And in return, we give you this beautiful bracelet, this valuable treasure, this black lava bead bracelet with one green bead, that one green, unity, harmony, nature, happiness. We're all in this together. Healed. Health and energy through active living every day. And this is our 29th week. We're into our 8th month. Every week we're here at Wednesday. And hopefully you get to see it either via Facebook or YouTube anytime you like. There's always a library, or you can go to 6ABC or one of their streaming services to see these healed gatherings. And we enjoy them. We have great guests. First week was Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt, the baseball player for the Philadelphia Phillies, talking about his stage 3 melanoma. And it goes all the way to today. And we usually have an expert on the first portion of the show, whether it's a doctor, exercise physiologist, nutritionist, surgeon, radiologist, oncologist, and then a warrior, someone who has, their body has been diagnosed with cancer, or a variety of forms of cancer there are, and then went through the treatment plan, and survived, and shares their time with us. Last week, we had what I called 4 warrior goddesses. If you haven't seen last week's show, go find it, because each one was on separately, but we had to have them all together. They were unbelievable. They make you think that your life, like, oh my goodness, and I complain about anything? Well, we have 2 wonderful guests today. This first one is unique because we've never talked about how or in which way can you have a healthy lifestyle at home, especially during COVID times. Our first expert is John Hines. John comes to us from Wisconsin, and he's a master trainer. I've known of John in the past. I've followed John's videos and have some of his home equipment. His dedication to these disciplines have yielded, he's got numerous patents for equipment. You're going to see, and everything is for your home. His training methodology is all about the body. You don't have to use machines. You can create your gym at home. He owns Monkey Bar Gym. It's a franchise across the United States, but you can create your own Monkey Bar Gym at home. He's a certified national strength and conditioning specialist. And I got to tell John that I don't know if he knows this, I was one of the first, I think it was the second year I got the certification in 79, 80, when the ACS started certifying strength and conditioning specialists. So please welcome our guest, John Hines. Hello, John.
Hey, Pat. Well, thanks for having me on your show.
Man, it's great to have you. And John, I meant to tell you off air, like myself and a fellow, Steve Mackel, we went out to New Orleans. And I think it was the second year that the NSCS was certifying it. And so luckily I'd already been a trainer and a physical therapist. So I at least had the education, and it was still, because the test was really hard.
Yeah.
And it was a practical, like it was really hard. So it's great to have someone who knows the body as you do and is not limited to just muscles training or strength training, but the whole body. So John, I'd like to start with give us a little journey in how John Hines became the trainer to the stars.
Oh, yeah. Well, I first got started because my dad, Bobby Hines, the beaded jump ropes. My
Oh my
dad,
goodness.
that's my dad.
I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, and he started the beaded jump ropes in 1973. I was about 9. And then he came out with the deluxe gym, a tubing with a bar.
I had that too.
Yeah, and those two tools got me in front of. I got to see like the old Buffalo Braves basketball team with Bob McAdoo, Ernie D, and all those guys. They would use his jump ropes, and then all these other guys would use his jump ropes. And I got to go see these guys, and I've always been a basketball nut. And then he introduced Deluxe Gym, and I became obsessed with using tubing to work out. And I just kept doing that, and I kept reading up on it. And when I was about 19, being a basketball fan, I was little though, and so I was about 5'8", 130 pounds when I was 19 years old, and I barely touched the rim. Wanted to learn how to evolve myself. That's one thing that you mentioned actually in the start for Healed is being conscious, being present every single day and trying to better yourself. And so one of my things was to jump higher. So I took my dad's tubing and I would tie it to myself and I would jump and jump and jump until I finally got to the point where I could hit my head on the rim.
Oh,
And I could do any dunk you could think of. I had about a 48-inch vertical jump, and that led me get into the NBA as a strength coach with the LA Clippers, because I was doing some profound stuff with tubing and body weight. And that got me out to LA, got me then in front of the Clippers, got me in front of a lot of celebrities, and then Darryl Strawberry and a lot of other pro athletes and stuff. And that hit my dad's two inventions really helped me start training at an early age, and eventually led me into meeting a lot of very influential people that are high level that I could help them in training. But,
so how'd you take this, John, this knowledge, this expertise, this experience with your dad and take it up a notch?
Well, it's funny in that I became so obsessed with jumping that I blew my left knee out, and I ended up hobbling around for years, and I didn't know how to fix it. I went to all these different doctors. They said, you could get surgery, you don't have to get surgery. And so I just kept hobbling around until I met this guy who taught me alignment training back in '97. And I became obsessed with merging my body weight and cable training with alignment training. And that profoundly changed my life. And it made me become more aware of being present, being in the moment, activating the body in a certain way so that you become more opened up and more balanced. And that type of training has been a mainstay since that day when I first met my mentor, in that Roger Isons. And it's a very unique active alignment methodology that I've been doing for now 24, almost 25 years, that we now call base alignment training. And that mixed in with my training and then mixed in with plant-based nutrition have become the crux of how I train people and try to educate people on moving better, eating better, breathing better, all the different aspects.
Stop there, John. You hit too many buttons right there. So I want to touch on breathing better. If you can just give our gathering just a little brief intro in what you mean. But let's go a step before that and talk about your plant-based diet. What do you recommend that our viewers, whether you have a diagnosis of cancer or you're a caregiver or you're just someone who's interested in leading a healthier life, what is your definition of a plant-based diet?
Well, if you don't mind me leading into it with how I became plant-based in the first place. I was fortunate enough in the 90s, I was training Woody Harrelson for all my time I was out in LA. And he got me to get off milk back in about 1990. And that was profound. And then he got me to just be more aware of the foods that I'm bringing into my body. And I kept eating just a gang of meat. And then when I opened my gym, 2000, I had arthritis symptoms coming in really bad in my hands. And I couldn't even grab a bar to do a pull-up without my hands like literally shaking from pain. So I met a guy who was plant-based, John Allen Mullenhour, who introduced me to Colin Campbell, of the China study. And they talked all about going plant and reverse arthritis. And so I said, okay, man. And I started eating that way. And within 2 months, my hand pain was completely gone and has never come back. And that was profound for me, because it had been getting steadily worse over 2 to 3 years, to the point where I couldn't train jiu-jitsu anymore. I couldn't hardly do body weight exercise anymore because the pain was so bad in my hands, and it was gone in 2 months.
Wow.
So I read his book thoroughly.
What books? Name a book. Name the book.
The China Study. It's the biggest nutritional study ever done in history. 750,000 people. And he proved that eating a plant-based diet, which is 80 to 90% or more plants, is the healthiest way for people to eat foods. And he went into that whole study trying to find support for drinking milk and eating more animal proteins. And in all of his research, he kept going all over the world, and all of his research finally beat him over the head so much he realized it's the meat and the dairy, so high consumption of them is what's causing so many problems. So he started really looking into, if I eat more plants, the countries that eat more plants have greater health. And so I was lucky to meet Colin. What a nice person. He's one of the best people I've ever met. And I went hardcore in it, and I've never looked back. It saved my life. And since that time, I made my Monkey Bar gyms, which I opened in 2000, plant-based. And when you ask me what is plant-based, most people misconstrue plant-based as vegan, and that means 100% plants. And plant-based is not. It can be 80 to 90 to 100% plants. And what he found was, if you consume over 10% animal products, is where disease starts to creep into your system. And so under 10%, all around the world, he found very little amounts of disease coming into the body when they had a healthy whole food nutrition plan that was less than 10% animal products.
And when you say disease, it can be a disease or dis-ease.
Yes, 100%.
The body is yelling, warning sign, something's wrong here. But most people don't listen to their body.
No.
And you are pro at having your clients listen to their body. But before we go there, you talked about proper breathing. Why don't you touch on that?
Yeah. Here's another story of breath is such an important element. It's the number one thing that we need to survive. And if we don't do it properly, we are going to negatively impact our life. And there's a book that I found that was written in the 1800s by a man who would go and study Native American cultures. And one thing he noticed, there was a difference between Europeans, native cultures, is that native cultures always had their mouths closed. Europeans always had their mouth open. And he thought that peculiar, but then noticing the facial structure, Native Americans, strong looking. European, they called it a horse face. The jaw hangs, it creates a different shape to the mouth. And just those two things negatively impact us. But then it went further. The nasal passage filters the air. It warms the air. And it also affects the way that our nervous system works as well. We have a stress, fight or flight system, basically, and parasympathetic and sympathetic. Sympathetic is stress, and that's when we mouth breathe. Parasympathetic, you can think of as peaceful, and that's when we nasal breathe, and it's calming. And that's how I teach people, is that one's peaceful, one's stressful. And so, obviously, what you want to do in your life, you want to do that which brings calm and peace to your body. and your mind and your spirit. And so I started doing this not because I had just seen that in Native people, but because at the time when I started reading this, I was having lung issues. I was having a hard time breathing, and I would actually find myself doing this a lot, sighing all day and trying to do a deep breath to catch my breath, but also lifting my shoulders up in order to do that. And we started steadily getting worse, and I didn't understand why this was. And so I just started researching it, and that's when I found that book, Shut Your Mouth. And it was by, I think his name was, I might be messing this up, but his name was Edward Curtis. I believe he was a photographer of native cultures back in the 1800s. He wrote the book called Shut Your Mouth. And the more I read of it, the more that I was just like, God, he's right on. And so I started applying it. I didn't find that I had to sigh or gasp for breath anymore. I felt much easier to breathe. And that was just one thing that I tried to apply on a regular basis. And this goes right into what you talked about, the HEALED acronym. This is one thing I can do on a daily basis that brings more health to me. Plant-based is another thing that I can do daily that brings more health to me. And then my other thing in movement is medicine, the alignment training, and then challenging ourselves by body, mind, and spirit to just evolve and increase our range of motion, active range of motion on a daily basis. These are how I look at life to try and constantly grow our range of motion in all of them. And I don't mean range of motion just physically, I mean it mentally and spiritually as well. That's what brings youth and vitality, I believe, to people and all persons.
So I hope our gathering are listening, because John has given such great little secrets that everyone can utilize every day. Body alignment. Your parents have been telling you to hold your head up, chest out, shoulders back, our whole life. In the martial arts, we were taught to imagine a fishing line is held at the crown of the head to the sky. And so it just pulls you up. Breathe in through your nose. Now, do you also suggest breathing out through pursed lip, John?
Well, that's
doesn't
what
matter.
I like. It depends on what I'm trying to do. Sometimes I like to breathe like that. If I'm doing like faster paced breathing, it depends on if I'm training. In jiu-jitsu, my instructor Hickson Gracie used to teach us nasal only breathing while we train to calm our body. So that was nasal only. So I mix it up.
So what would you recommend to our community right now who are, let's say they've been exercising or they're interested in starting to exercise?
Yeah.
What breathing would you recommend?
Here's a great nasal only breathing is an awesome way to begin your training or evolve your training, because it puts a ceiling on how hard you can go. One of the things that I see most people do when they begin is they're like, oh, I don't want to overtrain, or I don't want to overexert. Well, shut your mouth, train. When you got to open your mouth, stop. It's really simple, right?
I know I've never years of which like 50 of them been in fitness. I've never heard that. Never heard that advice. Really? It's wonderful.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a long time, and it works. If you have stop, it's really simple. And then when you can breathe through your nose only again, start. And for people beginning, it works great because they want a marker that tells them immediately. And you or I, heart rate monitors, everybody's heart rates, unless you do a real test, you really don't know what your max effort is. But this does.
That's great. I used to say, if you can't whistle, it's too hard for you to start.
I like that.
So, John, let's go. We went from plant-based 80 to 90% plant-based. Yeah. And Jeannie Subak, our doctor, our nutritionist who comes on at the beginning of every month, totally behind you on that. Totally. We're talking about nasal breathing. And now Monkey Bar Gym and this alignment. And give us some insights about your Monkey Bar Gym. I love the name, because what kid doesn't love to play on monkey bars? Yeah.
Well, I opened it 21 years ago because I just saw a need. There was traditional gyms, and then there was yoga studios. There was no place that did movement practices that would integrate alignment practice in them as well. There were usually people used machines. Strength coaches, would do full body movements with Olympic lifts and things like that. But the majority of gyms out there were machine based, or there was yoga studios. So when I would start playing on monkey bars, I got other people to start training with me. And I was training jujitsu as well and teaching jujitsu. And jujitsu warm-ups are all about free-flowing movement, animal movement patterns, rolling, crawling, climbing, all types of things like that. So I just thought, there's no gym like this. Why don't I open a gym like this? And as soon as I opened it, it blew up. And it was what I believe is one of the first truly functional training gyms around. I mean, we trained barefoot. I had no machines. There was no mirrors in there as well, because I didn't want people looking at themselves. I wanted them feeling their movement patterns and feeling how my hands are on the ground, how my feet are on the ground, how fluid I'm moving, and all these different patterns. And so I thought this would be something brand new to the industry. And so that's why I opened the gym up in January 2000, and integrating the plant-based into it, the barefoot movement, and the alignment practice. I thought that was a very unique way to go. But there was one more thing that I felt was missing. And one thing that actually made me sort of sick of the traditional gym was the mirrors, the focus on how we look, not how we feel. And so what I started doing is what we're doing today. What do we intrinsically want to do? We want to help others. So people helping people became the crux of my gym. And the logo, if you notice, it's two people together in balance. And since day one, my whole thought process has been collective power. People helping people, people helping planet. And we want to do things on a regular that encourage that. And so I taught my members how to train and move, align and eat, but then I also encouraged them how to help other people in class. And so what I saw was people get excited to then go help another person and that person and stuff. And it worked just like magic, like dominoes. And it created a completely different vibe in a gym that I had not seen before. The energy in the gym was off the charts and really was quite amazing.
And how many franchises do you have now, John?
Well, we had a good amount before COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, most of the gyms closed, including our brick and mortar. We went 100% online when COVID hit.
So let's stay there. Let's stay there because that's perfect. Before I ask you to take a rest and we'll bring on our next guest, most of our gathering who've had a diagnosis of cancer, whether they can go to a gym or not, because of COVID, they may not go because of the immune compromised. Their immune systems are compromised, and so we have to be careful. What do you recommend that they do at home? Or what of your equipment, and please be selfish here because I think you offer great equipment. What would you recommend someone invest in so that they could have their own monkey bar gym at home?
Yeah, well, we have online training. We have programs that are for all levels. We call it stability, strength, and power levels. And you can start off with just really simple equipment, and you can have a jungle gym, something that I invented in '97, the first suspension training tool. Put that over a door, you can put it over bars, and it helps you do all body weight exercises. If you got a pull-up bar, that's awesome because I really like doing brachiation, which is hanging off one or two arms in different manners and getting the shoulder and the scapula to work and to create length in the fascia. Then also another tool that I invented in '94 actually was the power wheel.
I love the power wheel. Yeah. I'll do a commercial for the power wheel. I always do the power wheel. Always. It's part of my strength training when I'm in a gym or my gym in a home. Power wheel.
Very smart man. That my power wheel.
I'm sorry I interrupted because you got me all excited. No, tell everyone what a power wheel is.
Yeah, well, the power wheel is something I invented because I saw Dr. Fred Hatfield working with Lyle Alzado on Venice Beach. He was jumping across the sand, and he was holding Lyle Alzado's feet. And I was like, man, too bad he doesn't have a wheel or something to put in there, because Lal Alzado is sort of going at the pace that Dr. Hatfield's walking. So then I thought, man, that'd be a cool invention. And it's really great for upper body power. And that's where I was thinking at first. So I took my mountain bike tire, I got a longer axle rod, put it through there, and I duct taped my feet to the axle rod. And then I started jumping around in the parking lot, and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm getting an incredible pump. And I was walking, I was jumping and stuff like that. And I was like, man, this is really cool. I'm getting
John, wait, let me just describe it for people. So John is prone. His hands are on the ground as if he's going to do a push-up, and his feet are tied in to the axle through a wheel. There's a wheel, the same kind of wheel you would use if you were resting on your knees, and to stretch your body out to try to get into plank, and then pull using your abs, your core all the way back. John does that with his power wheel. But now go, John, and go crazy.
You. I didn't quite answer the question. I got all excited talking about the power wheel. Yeah, you can use it on your feet. You can use it on your hand. You can use it prone, supine, a whole bunch of different ways. This day I invented it. I was prone, face down in a push-up position, wheel on my feet. I was crawling. I was hopping left, right, all over the place in search of just upper body strength and power. The next morning, I could barely sit up out of bed because my abs were so sore. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, what the hell did I do yesterday? And then I realized every single step and jump that I took, my core had to stabilize. Because the wheel, being one wheel, is unstable this way, but it's unstable always. And then every step I took, I'd be on one hand in the wheel and then the other hand, or if I jumped. So it puts you in an incredibly unstable environment. And the more unstable environment, the more you have to stabilize, the stronger you get. So when I realized that, I was like, wow, this is an amazing core exercise. And then I took it to the NSCA conference in New Orleans, which is weird that you said that. And Brian Bailey, the strength coach at Nebraska, saw it, and he goes, 100 of them. And so that started me selling the power wheel.
Great. Well, look, that's a great time to take a timeout. We'll stay at the top. John, sit on the bench. We'll bring you back in. Play with your toys over there. We're going to go to our next guest, but be prepared to come back.
Thank you, Pat. Sir, I'm here.
I love that guy. So our next guest, this is our warrior segment. We got a warrior for you. His name is Rob Long, diagnosed with anaplastic astrocytoma. It's a rare and aggressive brain tumor with a 5-year survival rate of 15%. This was diagnosed 10 years ago when he was graduating from Syracuse University and going to be a member of the 2010 NFL draft class. And here he is diagnosed with cancer. We'll bring Rob on with that intro and let Rob share his journey with us. Hello, Rob.
Hey, Pat. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Now, how about that? Is that guy nuts?
It's unbelievable. I could have sat on the bench the rest of the time and listened to you two talk.
You can see why he is such a successful trainer, and people just want to follow him right through the wall, like fools.
I believe it.
But he's smart enough to say, start slow, start low. So, Rob, how did you get started? Like let's go with your football career.
Sure. So I stumbled into football. I was waiting for my buddies at practice one day. I had played soccer and hockey my whole life, and was never really considered playing football. I was waiting for my buddies. They were at practice. I was kicking the ball around. Coach said, "Hey, we need somebody to kick and punt. I think you can do it." So I told the coach, I was like, "Yeah, the only problem is," I was like, "my mom's never going to let me play football." And I got home that day, and the coach had called my mom, and she said, "Why did Mr. Biffle call me and ask if you could play football?" And so that started the beginning of my football career. And so I played a year later. I joined the Downtown West High School team, and under Coach Milano, punt and kicked there for 3 years. And my senior year, I had an offer from Syracuse University to attend Syracuse and play football and be their punter on a full scholarship. And so
Wow.
it was an incredible journey for me.
What was your major then, Rob?
So I majored in, I had a dual major, marketing and supply chain management from the business school at Syracuse. And then later went back and finished my master's from the Newhouse School of Communications.
So you went all the way. You played all 4 years at Syracuse? A full
Yeah,
ride.
so I went full ride. I started as a true freshman. My first game was on ESPN. I played University of Washington. It was just a surreal thing for me. I went from playing high school a year prior to on ESPN, and then our second game was at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, and just an unbelievable experience to play football and at that level, unbelievable stadiums and competition. So for me, I was fortunate to have this awesome career at Syracuse. I was named a captain twice, and really thought that I was on a path to the NFL, and had signed an NFL agent and was prepared to see what NFL team was going to draft me. And 5 days after my last regular season game, I hadn't really been feeling well my senior year. I was getting sick. Wasn't every time we flew on the team planes, I was getting vomiting and nausea, and I had headaches, and just something wasn't right. And you talked about, right, listening to your body, and you realize, I'm 21 years old playing Division I football. I can handle anything and I can do anything, until I couldn't, right? Until I got to that point where, my body was really sending me a lot of messages to say, you need to see a doctor. You need to, get.
So Rob, keep us there. What was the moment in time when you finally listened to your inner self and you said, I got to see? Because obviously playing football on a full ride at Syracuse, you were invincible, and you can overcome anything. What was that moment that made you stop, be still, and listen to yourself?
I can tell you very specifically. It's Thanksgiving morning, 2010. I woke up from a normal night of sleep. Hadn't been out the night before, just went to practice, and I woke up that morning in 2010 and was unbelievably sick, and I was throwing up. I for over 2 hours was over top of a toilet, and I couldn't get up. I couldn't do anything, and
for no apparent reason.
No apparent reason. No, I had no cause. I hadn't eaten breakfast yet. I hadn't done anything. And I remember finally making it down to the team facility. It was only about a mile away. Made it down to the team facility, and I kept throwing up down there. And I remember sitting on the floor of the locker room, and I started to have tears come out of my eyes. And I just realized, like, something's not right, and I need to get this fixed. And went and saw the team doctor, and they sent me for an MRI, and that MRI was December 2nd, 2010, and went back to the team doctor, and I walked into the room, and the entire training staff was in there. A lot of my coaches were in there, and I kind of made a joke. I knew that when all the coaches and the trainers were there, that it was usually a serious or season-ending injury, and I just walked in. I said, well, I guess this isn't good news, not realizing how bad the news was going to be honest. And so the doctor told me that I had a rather large growth in my brain. I need to see a specialist first thing in the morning. December 3rd, 2010, I walked into a neurologist's office in Syracuse, New York. And for the first time in my life, I saw my MRI on the screen, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a brain MRI. And I just looked at, basically the top view of my brain, and the entire back right portion of my brain was just this white mass. And
was that white mass indicative of a tumor?
Yeah.
It was that big.
Yeah, it took up about a quarter of my brain. It was about almost the size of a tennis ball. And I looked at the trainer. The doctor hadn't even entered the room yet. And I just looked at the trainer. I said, well, what is this? He said, well, that white mass isn't supposed to be there. And it felt like a ton of bricks had fallen on me. And it was at that moment that I really understood that I was in not great shape, and that it really hit me at that moment for the first time. I think even when they told me the night before, it didn't really resonate because I had no visual understanding. And to be honest, like I didn't feel that bad, right? I walked in there, I played an entire Division I football season. And so, nothing could be that wrong with me, only to find out that it wasn't good. And then, so from that moment, I was flown home to Philadelphia. I was treated at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital, an unbelievable team there of doctors and specialists, the nurses, everybody was
Rob,
incredible.
share with us your treatment.
So I, December 3rd, they saw the tumor. I was flown home that day. I went to have emergency surgery about 1 week later to remove the tumor. They were fearing any kind of major medical event because the tumor had gotten so big and the symptoms were starting to really hit me. So I had spent my 22nd birthday, December 13th, in the hospital getting prepped for brain surgery. December 14th, I had the craniotomy. And then 6 days later, on December 20th, I received the diagnosis that you had mentioned, a grade 3 anaplastic astrocytoma. And I just remember sitting, in the exam room with my family and the doctor telling me at 22 years old, there's no cure for what you have. And we're going to, do what we can to find it. But, we can't make any promises at this point. And then you find out the 5-year survival rate and you're 22 years old and you sit there and it impacted me tremendously. And I think mentally, emotionally, and physically, that I thought I was prepared to take on life, to play in the NFL. I'd done everything I can. And, I was in the best shape of my life, thank God. And I went in there and probably about 205, 210 pounds by the time I was diagnosed. And within a month of that, I was down to about 165 pounds. And to be honest, a lot of it was just an absolute fear of dying and unable to eat. And it took me a real long time to understand, how this was going to play out, right? That this was going to be a battle.
So Rob, let's go into this battle.
Yeah.
You are told, obviously the diagnosis, but how rare, extremely rare it is that to live for 5 more years, only 15% of 100 people would do that. Will live that. Will live 5 years.
Yeah.
What would be the normal lifespan with this diagnosis?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
But it's less than 5 years.
Yeah, it's less than 5
that.
years.
And so now this has affected you. You've had the surgery. What other treatment did you have after surgery?
So I went through surgery. I did chemotherapy and radiation every day for 6.5 weeks. And then
wait, stop for a second.
Yep.
You had chemo and radiation every day for 6 weeks?
6.5 weeks every day. Yep. And then after that, I did an additional 12 months of chemotherapy. And I think, honestly, that was probably the most difficult part of all of this, was the understanding that I was going to go through chemotherapy for an entire year. And the way that it was set up for me was they were 28-day cycles. So it'd be 5 days of chemo and then 23 days of recovery. And it lasted for over a year. And what was most difficult about it was that each time I went through this cycle, I knew that I was going to lose 10 to 15 pounds. I knew I was going to get really sick. I knew I was going to feel, like crap for about a week to 10 days after the chemotherapy. And then I also knew that I had about 3 weeks to get my butt back in shape for the next time. And so I spent every day that I could. I went to the gym. I worked out. I did everything that I could to prepare myself for my next battle. And it's an emotional and mentally draining process to go through. It taught me an incredible amount about myself and about life. And
what did it teach you? Share with us, because from what I'm hearing, you just underwent 4 seasons of top-notch football at Syracuse, and now you're going through 12 seasons of chemotherapy, where 3 weeks you train to get ready for the 1 week of debilitating chemo. So what went through your mind? What did you learn about yourself?
I learned that we're all stronger than we believe we are, and that we're an incredibly resilient people, that we can overcome, that when faced with undeniably difficult circumstances, the power of the human spirit can do more than we ever know. And I can't tell you how many times people, would come up to me and say, I can't believe, you're doing this, or I can't believe, like, I'd never be able to do it. And I always just think, like, you really could, you absolutely could if you needed to. And, it's one of those things that I'm certainly not happy or glad that I went through brain cancer, but I also can appreciate what it's given me and what it's offered me, just as a person, and being able to, to do something and make the most of, the time that I have, and really enjoy that. What it's given me, I could never even imagine, where I'd be without, the lessons that I've learned, and the resiliency that I've, had to face. And to be where I am now, I remember praying, I wanted to be 30. I wanted to get married. I remember a distinct conversation with the man above saying, if you gave me until I was 30, I would take that, and I'd be good. And because I just wanted more time. I wanted more time. And, here I am, I'm 32. I'm married to an absolutely amazing woman, who's been the light of my life. And we have a house and a dog, and things that were dreams for me 10 years ago.
John, how does your body feel now?
I feel great. I work out every day. It's something that
describe your workout, because healed. We're talking to people who they don't understand the concept of activity, physical activity, the movement. You undergoing brain cancer, brain surgery, and coming back and feeling great, like you just stated. Tell us what you do.
So I do the simple things, right? It's the at-home workouts. It's a set of dumbbells for me at home, and whether it's like a cardio kind of geared workout, I do a lot of the Peloton workouts at home. It's simple. I do it in my living room. This isn't something that you need a million things or pieces of equipment. John can speak to this, right? It's the couple core pieces that you need to get your body moving, and for me, it's just keeping my body in shape and keeping myself prepared. I always, whether it's right or wrong, I want to make sure that I'm prepared for whatever comes at me through life. And so from that standpoint, I want to be physically fit and take care of my body, and both, physically, but also mentally and emotionally. I think, that aspect of it is so important. And so for me, it's just the will and the drive to stay active, to keep keep everything moving, and keep enjoying the fact that I am able to work out, that I'm able to move. I can go for a run. I can lift weights. Those are things that I truly and genuinely appreciate the ability to be able to do every day.
So that attitude of gratitude about working out, living life now, enjoying the now, you really are like the role model for that, because you were only given 5 years to live at the most. And here you are 11 years later, and you say feeling great. And not only that, but you've taken your learning experience, this lesson that became a blessing, and you are, as John and I were talking about, the pebble in the pond. And these ripples that are going out are like tsunamis for others. Share with us your involvement in this foundation.
So I am the executive director of an organization called Uplifting Athletes.
Uplifting Athletes. I want to make sure it goes on the screen. Good.
Yeah. So Uplifting Athletes, our mission is to inspire the rare disease community with hope through the power of sport. So
stop. Let's slow down. I want everyone to hear that mission statement. Say it again, slowly, loudly.
Yeah. So our mission is to inspire the rare disease community with hope through the power of sport.
Beautiful. And how do you do that?
So we work with athletes at all levels, high school, college, and professional, to help them realize the platform that they have as athletes, and leverage that platform to support those in the rare disease community, whether it's through engaging with them, in uplifting experiences, or bringing awareness to the rare disease cause, or funding rare disease research. These are all things that are part of our programming as an organization, and that we believe we're very uniquely positioned as an organization to bring this connection between the athletic community and the rare disease community, and really bring a lot of positive to both communities while we do it. So we're really excited about the ability to work with athletes. We have a network of college football chapters that are run by student athletes. And these student athletes are our on-campus ambassadors. They host fundraising events. They are advocates for the rare disease community. We work with schools like Penn State, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Northwestern, Illinois, Clemson, Florida State. We have an unbelievable network of athletes, both in college and also at the professional ranks. And really, it's just about leveraging that platform and bringing awareness to the rare disease cause. And as you had mentioned, for me, this is something that's so deeply personal. I got involved with the organization when my teammates at Syracuse started the Syracuse chapter of Uplifting Athletes in my honor. I learned about the organization and I simply fell in love with the mission and what we do. I started with the organization full time in 2016. Was promoted to the executive director role in 2018. Along with my colleague Brett Brackett, we're the leadership team of Uplifting Athletes, and we really want to bring this organization to a national level, build the foundation of this organization up so that we can really impact the rare disease community as a whole across this country by working with athletes. And we're really excited about a lot of the programs and initiatives that we have ongoing.
So that's a strong college roster. Anything in the pros yet?
Yeah, so we work with individual athletes at the professional level. We had hosted 8 families in the Kansas City area with the Kansas City Royals, and our ambassador there, Michael A. Taylor, who give him a shout out. He just won a Gold Glove. He's a center fielder for the Kansas City Royals, and so we work with those individual athletes. We have a ton of guys that, if you're familiar with the My Cause, My Cleats campaign that is put on by the NFL, we've had about 24 guys wear Uplifting Athletes cleats in the NFL. We work and host our major Young Investigator draft event at Lincoln Financial Field with the Philadelphia Eagles. So for us, we just are trying to continue to build those inroads and connections. As you mentioned, we have a strong college roster of college football programs, but as we are growing and moving forward with the organization, we want to be able to bring these offerings to all sports. And we started our first women's college soccer chapter this year. So really starting to branch out and provide this opportunity to athletes at all levels and all sports.
How fulfilling is this for you?
I will tell you that I absolutely love what I do. It's something for me that I wake up every day and I'm able to give back and pay forward the benefit that I've had. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is our Young Investigator draft program. So this is our research funding program where we fund and support researchers at the early stages of their careers to let them know that there's organizations out here that support them and that are willing to elevate and celebrate the work that they're doing in the rare disease community. And for me, we've launched this program in 2018. And since that time, we've funded 25 different researchers and over $440,000 in research grants. And my hope is that these researchers are going to be the ones that find the treatments and cures for those in the rare disease community moving forward. And so that fewer patients have the conversation that I had with my doctor when they said, no, there is no cure for what you have. And I firmly believe that we're doing a tremendous job of planting seeds in the rare disease community with funding for these researchers so that they can move forward in their careers and have an impact on those impacted by rare diseases, that they can spend more time with their loved ones like I've had that time afforded to me.
It's amazing how the divine universe works, and it touches people like you who you say pay it forward, have just been a iconic role model for everyone, myself included, where you can take this debilitating rare disease and use it as a sort of presence to go out there and say, look at me, there's hope.
Yeah.
Rob, stay here. I want to bring John Hines back on. John, how are you again?
I'm good. Really, really interesting, Rob. What a great story, an inspiring story.
So if John or Rob, if you have a question for each other, please bring it up because I'll just keep talking and ask more questions of both of you. You've both been such engaging, energetic guests that both of you are role models.
Yeah, just listening to your story, Rob. Well, Pat, you asked a great question. That moment that hit your head that your life's going to change. There is a moment there, that moment in your storyline, and then as you're going through that year of incredible adversity, and when was it after you were coming out that you were like, I got to do something about this? I got to help other people. Was there a moment in there as well where you were like, that you realized you were like, I'm getting stronger. I'm going to beat this. I got to help other people.
Yeah. So I think that the hardest thing for me was that there became a point where physically I was improving, but mentally I was still almost in decline. And I think it's an aspect of this that is little talked about or little discussed is that I would go in and I was unbelievably blessed to receive a clear scan and clear MRI. And it's just a spot where people with brain cancer don't usually get. And I got there and, the doctors told me, and I, just remember that day. And I remember being relieved, but I also had this anxiety about it, that why am I still alive? Why am I the one that is surviving? Why are all the other people that I've learned about that have my disease have passed? And so for me, there was this element of survival skill. There was an element of I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and until that aspect of it was addressed, every time I talked about my story, anytime I came into a situation like this one, and I talked about the worst days of my life, I would leave that feeling like I had exposed a part of myself that it took a while to recover from. And so the one thing that I want to be an advocate for and to kind of be an example of is also taking care of your mental health and your mental well-being through all of this. That, that post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis changed my life for the better, because there was elements of time where I was physically well and mentally and otherwise physically felt terrible. And so for me to be able to address that, get help for it, it's allowed me to be the person that I am today, to be able to come on to a platform like this and share my story and be happy about the ability to do that, and to feel that I'm hopefully empowering others to know that this is something that is really important. And it's not just the getting to be cancer free aspect of it, but to be getting free of those shackles, of those burden that hold you down, and to be able to live my life and to be the individual that I want to be, and kind of carry myself in a way that hopefully is an example for other people, that we can we're unbelievably powerful and capable of more than we ever thought. If you told me when I was 10, 15 years old that I was going to have to go through all this, I don't know how I would have responded at that point. But for me, it's the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual side of this that is also, there's so many different facets to what we deal with. And so I think all of that is so important, and I applaud both of you for the advocacy and the work that you do, and sharing about your journeys and the importance of all that you do.
One thing I'd like to add, Rob and John, is that we cannot ask the question why. You can't ask the question why. This finite mind of ours, which is just a modulation of pure infinite awareness, it's finite, it's limited. How can the limited mind ask the infinite why? No, all we can do is accept. As you did, Rob and John, in both of your journeys, you accepted what the Supreme gave you, and you took it, and you became ripples in the pond. That's wonderful. So last question I ask you both is, that ripple that you're having in the pond, in your own universe, what would you like to say to the universe right now in a way that they can take it, put notes, and start doing it themselves? Like, if John can do it, I can do it. If Rob can do it, I can do it. What would you, and take your time, but what would you like to verbalize out there that they could create as a manifesto, a simple one that they could write in the beginning of their journal? Rob, John, I'll start with you.
I like to just try and look at each day as an opportunity to grow. And so I look at all the different aspects in my life that I can improve upon.
John froze. John's
that single thing,
John, wait a second,
I just
John,
look
we
at.
lost you for, go back about 10 seconds. You're frozen, so we didn't get to hear.
Okay.
You look at your life. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just look in the mirror and I just evaluate. And this is one aspect. I mean, self. I have a saying that I've told for a long time, and we all do this, but there's steps to this. I before we before all. And number one, you got to take care of yourself, mentally, physically, spiritually. Where am I? How can I improve myself? Okay, now I'm getting to a place that I can help others around me, my friends, my family. Oh, how can I do that in a way that, maybe that's all the level of a person's going to do, but whether Rob verbally goes out or physically goes out and tells anybody anything moving forward, his story has huge effect. And that is he took care of himself first. He then hit his community around him, maybe at Syracuse, and now he's taking it nationally and globally, maybe. But that is what I try, and I've always tried to think, and I think intrinsically we all want to do that. So what I've done, and what my wife and I do now, is we try and teach people how to take care of themselves, get healthy, eat plant, do alignment training every day. We do a very simple movement practice that makes you feel balanced and healthier and decreases aches and pains and just makes you feel great. But then the next level is, how do you teach other people? How do you help other people and reach out to other people? Because I believe that's all we want to do, is we want to help others. And so we try to give them a platform in which that they can do that. And we think that's a really beautiful thing to do, to teach and to help people to learn how to teach and help other people themselves.
And for those who want more information on John Hines and Monkey Bar Gym, they go to monkeybargym.com.
Correct.
You can see his videos, you can see his systems, his equipment, and it's available for all of us.
Yeah.
Rob, you're on.
I mean, John's was so good. I don't know how to follow it up, but I would think, for me, simplifying, things, right? And, the world can be very overwhelming. I think if we simplify it, one foot in front of the other, prioritize and figure out what's most important and address those things is the best thing for us. And I really can't emphasize enough what John said is, taking care of your individual well-being so that you can be the best version of yourself for those around you, whether it's your spouse, your children, your parents, your friends. That is so important. I think there's times where we focus on how much people can do for others, and that's great, but it's only really beneficial if they can take care of themselves first, be the best version of yourself so that you can radiate that positivity and be there as a support system and to support and help others. And I think those are the things that are really important for us.
You guys, Rob and John, you just morphed a physical, mental message into a spiritual message that goes back to the 8th century BC. On the Temple of Apollo in Delphi are 2 words written as you enter the anteroom: know thyself. It starts all there with thyself. And that's not being selfish. That is one, taking care of the hub of the wheel so that the frenzied activities surrounding it will have your presence, your power, your awareness, your love, your service. John Hines, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you,
Rob
Pat.
Long,
Thank you, Rob.
man, what a story, both of you.
Thank you.
Really, I
Yeah.
was looking forward to it, and you exceeded my expectations. Guys, I'd like to end our Healed Gathering with just a attitude of gratitude, and you've been saying it all along. It's one little moment of silence, of stillness, where we say, thank you for the grace and allowing me to welcome what is right now. The grace for welcoming what is right now. Not expecting anything in the future, not comparing anything to the past, but just being in the present moment. And thank you. Thank you too. Mwah. Peace, brothers.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Powerful.